today. Well, that's a little too high. And then thank you for those that are watching on our live stream. I'm Kyla Jackson for those of you who are watching. I hope everybody had a good week this week. I know I did. It was busy, and as I was telling these ladies in here, it was dusty and paint fumey and all of that. We had finished our floors in our basement, and we got all of the walls and stuff dusted. So yeah, so if you hear me coughing, or that's why, because I still have all that dusty stuff in my nasal. No. But I'm not as allergic to it as Pastor Joe, so I'm good. I did saline spray, nasal spray, all that junk, so we'll see how it goes for the rest of the day. So if I seem off, that's why. No. A lot of the time I seem like I'm off anyway, just because it's just those days sometimes. So, all right, well, welcome. I have a couple announcements here. Today is our annual meeting. Please hang around and stay around and listen to all the stuff that we have done in the last year, but also what we're planning, new proposals and stuff that we're going to be talking about today. Okay? Is that after the morning service? Yes, ma'am. Nope. No, they changed it because we have to have a certain amount of people here for whatever. I said forum, but he said a quorum or something. We have to have a certain number of people to be able to say, yes, we're all for it. Just like in the Senate seat, how they all go through all this stuff. Right, Susan? She just took a tour of the Capitol, an in-depth tour, so I've been told. But when they pass bills, they have to have a certain number of people to be able to have the bills passed. So that's kind of why we changed it to morning service. So next, February 4th, next Saturday, is going to be the first Saturday of February. Crazy. But it's the men's prayer breakfast at 8:30 next Saturday morning at IHOP, okay? And then the following Saturday is our couples Happily Ever After seminar from 2 to 6 at Centennial Acres. Now, a little story behind Happily Ever After. You're like, how did you get the name? I picked it. Because my husband was asking me, he goes, well, what should we call it? We don't want to call it just a couple seminar. I was like, okay, so he goes, let's have a title for it. I was like, I named a couple. He goes, no. I was like, what about Happily Ever After? Because we want to be able to help couples. And if you're not a couple, even singles, Laura's been there before, even single people are able to be there. And if they're not married, or even if they don't plan on getting married later or at all, for the rest of their lives or whatever, that's fine. But then they would be able to take the information that they have gotten from the seminar to be able to help other people. And I said, but if we're trying to help these couples, honey, to have a happily ever after, then why not name it Happily Ever After? He goes, I like it. He goes, but let me take it to Pastor and see what he says. And it stuck. So, But that's that. And then that following Monday is our February Ladies Bible Study at 11 o'clock at Denny's right here on Saginaw. So please come, please bring a friend. I was told by Tina that she will be able to attend from here on out, as far as she knows, because if she comes today, congratulate her, because she had just retired after working for her place of employment for, how long, Judy, did she say? Long time. We'll just say that, a long time. So if you see her, yeah, I think it was 22 years. So if you see her today, and if she doesn't come, if you're friends with her on Facebook, say, hey, congratulations on your retirement. Or if she does come, next time you see her, say congratulations, because that's a lot of stuff that she did for so many years, okay? So those are our next few announcements. So if you have any other questions about any of these, just come to me after Sunday school, and I'll try and give you some more in-depth conversations about any of these events, okay? All right, if you could, please pray for Dee. She contacted Pastor and Pastor Joe this morning saying she's under the weather. She has cold symptoms and she has a fever and all that stuff. So just pray for Dee. Like any of us, I'm sure. Dee Florence, please pray for Dee. As you all know, unless you're crazy, we all don't like being sick. Okay? Because there are some people who like being sick, probably out there. I don't know why they would like to be sick, but you lose out on a whole bunch of stuff if you're sick. So, like yesterday, I was kind of disappointed because Thursday night I hurt my thumb. How? I don't know, so I can't tell you. Other than I hurt my thumb, and it was my right hand. And we had our bowling activity yesterday, and I'm like, man, of course. I had to hurt my thumb. Now I can't bowl. And my husband's like, well, try left-handed. I'm like, are you kidding me? I was like, there's no way I can bowl left-handed, for all you left-handers out there. And he goes, well, why don't you try it? I was like, he goes, well, my brother had shoulder surgery and he couldn't bowl, so he bowled with his left. And he bowled better with his left hand than his. I'm like, well, if John can do it, of course I can. So I did. And by the 7th frame of the first game, I got a strike. I'm like, okay, maybe. I ended the first game with an 88. Not too shabby for a lefty. And then the second game, I didn't do as well, but I still did pretty good, Got a 77 at the end. So, I mean, it's better than not getting anything. So it was fun. It was eventful. And so I think my left side is feeling it a little more than I would prefer, but that's what happens when you don't use the left side like you do your other side, your right side. So we have been talking about Christ's ministry. How many of you ladies have been enjoying our series so far on Christ's ministry? I know I have. There have been some information that I've even learned that I didn't really realize was really there, even though I've read the scriptures and I've read the stories in the Bible about it. But sometimes, how many of you have read the Bible or read something or heard something from someone and then you read it and you're like, oh, I just got what they were saying. I've done that with this because a lot of people, especially if you're following in like a devotional book, or like for me, for Sunday school, I have this book and I read it, but then these authors explain it differently than you're used to hearing. And I'm just like, see, I've read that verse, but it didn't click, Donna, until I actually read it in the book that I'm doing for Sunday school or for something else. I'm like, oh, that makes a little more sense, And so, but
I like to do that in private because I don't want anybody to know that I didn't remember.
Hey, that's okay. We all have our different ways of how we like to do stuff, and that's okay because God made us different for a reason, okay? So, but we are talking about Jesus' first miracle. And this is a really cool one. Now I'm going to say this. My father-in-law, when he would watch our kids, when he watches our kids, they would watch the I can't even think of it. It's a show about Jesus and all of his miracles and stuff. And they were watching it, and they did this first miracle on the show. And I'm like, whoa, that's kind of cool. And I don't agree with the Hollywood version that they take on the biblical stuff. But they did pretty good on this. But I was remembering this episode as I was reading this. I'm like, oh, that is almost like point on with what Hollywood did, but still, it's not fully biblical, but still. I'm just like, wow, what an amazing, story. Jesus could have done miracles anytime he wanted. But as you know, he wasn't going to do them until he was told to by God. And so this first miracle, you would think, well, why would he use that? Why would he do that as his first miracle? Well, I guess we'll just have to listen and see why. So John, if you have your Bibles, John 2, chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. If you don't have your Bible, you could go ahead and look up on the screen. It'll be up there on the screen, but it says, "In the third day there was a marriage in Canaan of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there." Who was the mother of Jesus? Mary. Okay, and both Jesus, the mother of Jesus was there, and both Jesus was called and his disciples to the marriage. And when they wanted wine, the mother of Jesus saith unto him, They have no wine. Jesus saith unto her, Woman, what have I to do with thee? Mine hour is not yet come. Now, this is Jesus, so he could say whatever he wants, whenever he wants, okay? But when a man calls someone, a lady, a woman, get over here, I want to say, excuse me? She has a name. It's not woman, because it drives me nuts, because it's like, show respect to the women in your life, but that just kind of caught me off guard. But anyway. But Jesus can do and say whatever he wants, because he's the Lord, okay? But I just thought it funny, like, woman, what should I do? But his hour has not yet come. He wasn't able to do it yet. Verse 5, it says, His mother saith unto the servants, Whatsoever he saith unto you, do it. And there were set there 6 water pots of stone, after the manner of the purifying of the Jews, containing 2 or 3 firkins apiece. Jesus saith unto him, Fill the water pots with water, and they filled them up to the brim. Verse 8, And he saith unto them, Draw out now, and bear unto the governor of the feast. And they bare it, or carried it. When the ruler of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, and knew not whence it was, but the servants which drew the water knew, the governor of the feast called the bridegroom, and saith unto him, Every man at the beginning doth set forth good wine, and when men have well drunk, then that which is worse. But thou hast kept the good wine until now. This being the beginning of miracles did Jesus in Canaan of Galilee, and manifested forth his glory, and his disciples believed on him. So, the wedding in Canaan. Well, first, Jesus and his disciples, we're kind of going back a little bit, he had 12 of them. The first lesson, last week when we did the disciples, they only mentioned 5. But he had 12 disciples. Okay? Your next point is the wedding in Canaan. The wedding in Canaan. The wedding back then, the festivities lasted for a couple days. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. When I got to the reception at my wedding, I was done. I was like, I am tired because of all of the emotions that happens on the wedding day. I'm like, and then I could barely eat because everybody wanted to come up and talk. I'm like, one bite. Oh, hi. Thanks for coming. Try and take another bite. Hi, thanks for coming. I really appreciate. I'm like, yeah, trying to talk. I'm like, thank you for coming. And then one of our teachers from college was getting ready to leave. I'm like, I had to get up and say goodbye to them because they like meant a lot to me at college. So I'm like giving them a hug. And he goes, okay, just Brother Ramus, you know those people that just have to give you a hard time no matter what day it is? Well, he did. I was like, just leave. Just go. And then I gave his wife a hug. I'm like, keep him in track. What? Yeah. So, I loved my wedding day. For those of you who were there, it was a great day. But at the end, I'm like, I didn't know we were going on our honeymoon. So like, we stopped and we got Subway and I ate the whole foot long. That's how hungry I was. And he thought I wouldn't eat all of it. I'm like, I am hungry. I scarfed that thing down. And then, well, after the wedding, our photographer, we went to the H Hotel in Midland. I'm like, what is she doing? She took forever to get there. She had to stop and get herself lunch. Because, well, she was taking pictures throughout the whole reception as well. I'm like, oh my word, Lori. And she had to get herself a Diet Coke as well. I'm like, I'm ready to be done. But she wanted more pictures so like an hour later, we were leaving finally. Then we got Subway. Then we were driving up. I'm like, he goes, lay back, take a nap. I slept almost the whole way there. I'm like, but we were like 40 minutes out. He goes, we're only 40 minutes away. I'm like, okay. Trying to stay awake the rest of the day. It was horrible, but it was fun. But just to imagine that all of all the eating and stuff that they did back then, all of the partying and they danced back then, they dance now, but not for my wedding anyway. But they all of that kind of stuff, it just kept going. It's like nonstop. You're like, wouldn't their feet hurt? Because they didn't wear very comfy sandals, I'm sure. I know. Well, they got exercise if they danced around everywhere, but But the wedding festivities lasted for days. Well, then, it's just, so it was a custom back then among the Jewish people to celebrate a wedding by giving a feast, which we all like eating. As Pastor said, we are Baptists. We love to eat. But Baptists are very good cooks. All the ones that I've, know. I've gone to a lot of Baptist lunches and meals at Saginaw, let alone here. I'm like, oh, these people can cook, But, yeah, so they ate and ate. In the little town of Canaan in Galilee, a big wedding was taking place. As we've read in the scriptures, many guests were present. Jesus, his disciples, his mother Mary had been invited. Well, as we know the story, everybody was having a good time, including Jesus. Jesus was partying? Yeah. He's man too. Yes. Yes, he was having fun. As Cammie brought out, I should clarify. Partying, not in like drinking and smoking and all that crazy stuff. He was just enjoying himself. Okay? Jesus was having fun too. Some people think when we give our lives to Jesus, he never wants us to have fun and enjoy life. And that's true. A lot of people think that. But that's not God wants for us. He wants us to still have fun. Yes, there are, as it says in the Bible, there's a time to laugh, there's a time to cry, there's a time to dance, there's a time to, all of this is in the Bible. There's a time and a place for everything. Susan?
Plus it says, merry heart doeth good like medicine.
Yes. But there's a time to be merry. Okay, so we all like hearing stories about children, right? In college, Cammie and I had a professor there who has 4 children, and every time he would preach in chapel, he would have at least one. Sometimes he would have more, but he would have at least one story. He goes, now I know all of you guys want to hear a story about my kids. Well, Marshall this. And it was all his youngest, Marshall. I got to babysit them, and they were fun. They weren't crazy like some of the other staff kids, but they were up there. But anyway, so here's the story. So on Mondays, we have piano lessons. Okay, we go to another church where one of the young ladies that are a member there, who's the main pianist, teaches us piano. And bless her heart, she's sitting there trying to teach the kids. Well, I'm trying to help the kids just stay quiet and just to stay in one place so they don't distract. So they're like, vroom, vroom, vroom. I'm like, guys, shh, just sit, be quiet. And they're kids, I get it. But I'm like, they're trying to learn, be quiet. You know, and it's like, but Mom, I want to play. It's like, you can, but quietly. Because it's like in school, you guys have to sit and be quiet. Pay attention. Well, speaking of school, the other day, Joe was helping me with the kids because I had to go get ready because I had to go somewhere. I don't know. And so Eli is over in his school desk area, and he's playing with stuff, grabbing stuff. And the teacher, and Joe's like, what are you doing? He goes, well, my teacher said to get 17 fun things out to help count. And Joe's like, I don't think so. Sit down. He goes, you're lying to me. He goes, no, Dad, that's what she said. It gets better. And Joe's like, I don't think so, Elijah. I don't think she said to get out 17 fun things or 17 toys to help count. He goes, Dad, I'm telling you the truth. He goes, okay, I'll make a deal with you. He goes, oh, okay. He goes, Elijah, if she told you that, I'll give you $100. You're like, what? I'm like, when he told me this, I'm like, 100? You know what I mean, not 10? So he goes, I don't think you're going to get the 100. He goes, no, I'm going to. And Joe's like, okay. So he rewinds it, and Eli, stop, Dad, that's, okay. Joe puts on the earphones. Okay, kids, this is unusual, but go get 17 fun things or toys out to help count today. So Joe's down $100, okay? And so Eli's like, he goes, I'm going to keep my word. So he goes to the other room, gets $100 and says, here, Eli. He goes, you mean it? He goes, I'm keeping my word. So Eli was overjoyed. He was just like, yeah. And then there's sweet little Glory Ann upset because she doesn't get money. And Joe's like, well, if you would have done it, you would have gotten $100. But why does he always get money? And Joe's like, Glory Ann, he told the truth. Like, oh, man, I wish I was Eli at that age. Good grief, I would have never lied again in my life, ever, if I got $100. And that would have been way more back when Cammie and I were kids. But anyway, so we got, and this is continuing on with the piano lesson. So we got to piano lessons. He goes, Miss Kayla, guess what? She's like, what? She's, trying to be as excited as Eli is. So we explained to her. She goes, man, I wish I could have done that. And I was like, it pays to tell the truth, right? She goes, yeah. And he goes, so 2 days later, he goes, hey, Mom, my teacher said I can get out 16 toys. I'm like, that's great, but I'm not paying you money. He starts laughing. But it pays to do the right thing, right? So back on track. But he was so excited about that. As they mixed around with the other guests, all chatting away happily, it was plain to see that Jesus was glad to be there and that he put his approval upon the marriage. Everybody was having a good time, like I said. Well, some people think, as I said before, that when we give our lives to Jesus, he never wants us to have fun and enjoy it. Well, that's a lie. If God didn't want us to have fun, he probably wouldn't have brought us to earth, to be honest with you. But God wanted us to have fun. He wanted us to learn things and to grow and to be able to help other people. I'm going to trip and fall backwards if I keep stepping back. So we got to make sure that as we live our lives, that we live it to the fullest. But within reason, too. We don't want to go out and splurge on things that we really don't need. And do things that are going to honor the Lord and that will matter for eternity. Okay? Well, as the wedding continues on, God wants us, as our life goes on, he wants us to go around with, he doesn't want us to go around with long, there we go, solemn faces like Eeyore. Okay? How many of us know an Eeyore or two? They're like, this is never good. Why is the weather always so bad on Sundays and blah, blah, blah. Well, why not be like the happy, whatever Winnie the Pooh character you want other than Eeyore? Tigger! That's Joe. Bouncing around everywhere. I always liked Piglet. I don't know why. I just liked Piglet. I don't know. And Gloria Ann's like, it's because we can make bacon out of it. I was like, make bacon. Get bacon from a pig. I'm like, oh my. That's Glory. She loves her bacon. Okay? Bacon is good as long as it's cooked right. Well, everybody has their own definition of cooked right. See, Eli and Joe like it still a little fatty. It's like eating rubber. Me and the other two like it crispy. Not burnt, but crispy. She likes burnt. She almost likes anything burnt. Pastor does too.
Don't burn everything I cook.
She doesn't. All of us were taught very well from our grandma and from our mom. We're all good cooks, except for maybe Kellen. No, I'm just kidding. Kellen is a good cook, although I haven't really had anything since he's been married, so I can't really say, I don't know. But when we were all home and he would cook something, pretty good. And it was all like toast or eggs. He did good eggs. He really did. Anyway, back on track. I keep getting, but Jesus doesn't want us going around, ho hum, this day is another cold day in Michigan. All that snow. I'm like, yeah, I know, all that snow. But, it's Michigan. We got to live with it. But just look on the bright side, ladies. In just a few months, it's going to be sunny and warm again. And then we're all going to say, I want winter to come. I want all this cool weather, because we can never be satisfied with where we're at. And it's true, And all my kids, when I take them outside, when it's like 78 degrees outside, hey, it's so hot I'm like, y'all wanted to go outside, so we're going to stay out here for another 20 minutes, at least. You guys can help me do this, this, and this. Or go ride your bikes, and I'll work in the front yard. Then after 5 minutes, I don't want to ride my bike anymore. Then go play soccer, go play something. Just do it. But we all need to realize that there's things in this world that we're not going to want to do. But that doesn't mean we have to be grumpy and miserable while doing it. I do not like doing laundry. At all. I don't like cleaning bathrooms. Because I did it while Joe and I were dating. I cleaned businesses, I cleaned houses. Dental offices, that smell just gets to you. And then you get to the eyeglass place to clean it and it smells like alcohol wipes. I'm like, I would rather take that than the molding stuff that they use to do the braces and all that nasty smelling stuff, but And I would rather take the alcohol smell than the cat litter box any day of the week. But there are things that we have to do in life that we don't like. Some parents don't like being parents, but God chose us to be parents, so we need to do it. God chose us to be this or that. We need to do it, and we need to do it happily. Well, in the middle of all the excitement, the feasting and the merrymaking, something very embarrassing happened. They ran out of wine. How many of you have had parties or family get-togethers and you didn't have enough food and you're like, what am I going to do now? Me. We have a whole bunch of family that goes over to Mom's house for Christmas time. And I'm surprised she has enough food, but Mom's pretty good at it because she used to work at the Saginaw City Rescue Mission, and then she has a large family on top of it, and then she did meals for the school, and then the church, and so she's just used to making over an abundance. I'm like, I had to get used to downsizing when Joe and I were first married, and then now I'm expanding. Yeah, so family of 5, and then when pastor comes over twice a week, enough for 6 and enough for leftovers. Well, we all have those times where we get embarrassed because we forget to set something out or the food's not ready. And you're like, oh, I put it in at the right time, right temperature. Why? Well, there's reasons why. Because we do fish once a week, and I normally don't put it in aluminum pans to cook just because it takes longer. And I normally just put it on a cookie sheet, because then this heat can just cook it from the bottom and stuff. Well, one time I put it in one of those aluminum disposable pans to cook. It wasn't done. So we had to put it in for longer than the time. I'm like, ah! And I was so mad. Joe's like, it's okay. It's like, I'm like, everything, not with fish. Oof. If it was something else other than fish, yes. Because my house was already smelly enough with the fish. I didn't need it extra and lasting for like days on end. Gross. But anyway, well, they ran out of wine. So the servants began frantically running around and whispering to each other, what should they do? Well, Mary goes up to Jesus and tells Jesus that there is no more wine. That's your next point. Yeah, no more wine. Well, she ran to him and said, hey, you need to do something about this because there's no more wine. That's our next point. Mary tells Jesus that there is no wine. No matter what our problem or difficulty is, we can go to Jesus with it, and he always has the right solution. If you're struggling with something, whatever it may be, just go to him in prayer. I was just counseling someone the other day, and because they were going through an issue, and I said, hey, this person said, I feel all alone. I said, you don't need to feel that way. I said, you're a Christian, and God is always with us. I said, you can't be afraid to go to him. She goes, I know I need to go to him. It's just, I just can't. I was like, yes, you can. I said, we know that the Bible says that God can do anything, in so many words. I said it differently, but in so many words. I said, but he's just waiting for us to just let go and let him do the work. And they're like, I know. I was just like, but it's so hard. It's easy to tell someone that, but it's not easy to live it ourselves. It's a work in progress every day. So if we let Jesus do it, then he'll give us the right solution, but in his time. And sometimes we tend to rush it. And when we rush it, then we see the mistakes that we make because we didn't follow him and wait. Well, Jesus said, they have no wine, or Mary said, they have no wine. And then Jesus said, woman, what have I to do with thee? Mine hour is not yet come. He wasn't able to perform a miracle yet. So his mother told his servants, whatever he saith unto you, do it. That's a good rule to follow. If God says do it, if he tells you to do something, do it. It may not be something, Susie, that we would like to do, but there's a reason why he wants us to do it, right? So do it. First, go to Jesus about any problem, and then whatever he tells you to do, do it. And do it with a happy heart. We must always be quick to obey him. Well, in ancient Oriental custom, each guest arrived, a servant washed each visitor's feet. Now, let me just say, I'm glad that custom is now no longer a thing. Because I don't know if I could do it. Yeah. Yep. So 6 large stone water pots were used to hold water that was necessary for all the washing that had to be done. Each pot held between 20 and 30 gallons of water. So Jesus asked them to get 6 large pots of water. 6. I mean, it could probably be about half my size. Okay. And they weren't these cute little plastic, dollar store finds. They were ceramic or the terracotta pot type thing. Those are heavy.
Yeah.
Even if they're empty, they're heavy. But when they have stuff in it, yeah, honey. Okay. Well, he asked them to bring 6 large water pots. Okay, but before I go any further in this, I missed a point. That was under the wrong point. So the next point, I'm sorry. The next point is the servants do as Jesus says. Okay? Jesus told them to get water pots. I realized I wasn't in the wrong spot. Okay. Jesus told them to get water pots. They looked at Jesus and then at each other like, what are they why water pots? They're probably thinking, are they going to wash feet? Is he going to wash feet again? Because that's what they use, But Mary had told them to do whatever he said, and so they did. They gathered up all the water pots, so here we go. Oh, break my back. I go. And then they have 6. Okay? And so they gathered them all up in the wineskins they could find and made trip after trip from the well to the water pots and back and forth, back and forth. So they had to get the little, as they say, wineskins or the little canteens that I call them canteens. They would go to the well, fill it up, and then they would walk over, pour all the water from there into the pot. Back and forth. Okay, if you're trying to get all your steps, you would have gotten them that day. So Jesus, told them to fill it with water. And so they did. They filled it to the brim. Now, we could think the brim like even across the top or the brim at the base of the neck of the water pot. Depends on what you want to say. Okay? Well, then Jesus told them to pour some out and take it to the governor of the feast. Okay? Must they obey or not? What would the governors think when they brought him water instead of wine? But again, they obeyed what Jesus said. They couldn't believe their eyes. As they poured the water into a cup, they noticed it has changed colors. They're probably like, that was water. But I wonder if Jesus let them stay in the room when he did that miracle. I don't know. But from the sounds of it, it sounds like Jesus had them just stay there, had him get the water, and then walk over and then pour it in the governor's cup. But I don't know. We might know once we get to heaven. Okay? It wasn't water anymore. It was wine. With wonder and amazement, they poured some into a cup and took it to the governor of the feast. Well, the people enjoy the new wine. So in a custom, they would always put the good wine out first. And then when they would start running low, then they would get the other wine out. And so the governor was like, why did you wait till the last minute to put the new wine out, the good wine out? Oh, because they ran out of the other wine that was supposedly their best wine. So, the new wine was delicious. The Bible says, this beginning of miracles did Jesus in Cana of Galilee. This was the first public demonstration of his heaven-given power. After this, his disciples believed that he was the Messiah. So before the miracle happened, they didn't really know for sure if he was the Messiah. And then this miracle happened, and they're like, yep, this is him. Well, Jesus changes people. The last point of the last little section was they would serve the best, okay, typo on my part. I fixed it and then it must have changed it again. But they would serve the best wine, not wind, first, not last. Sometimes technology drives me nuts. Okay? Next, Jesus, here's the last point. Jesus changes people. Jesus changes people. You know, it was nothing for Jesus to change the water into wine. It was nothing. He's in the business of changing things, circumstances, hearts, lives, families, and homes. Look how he changed Simon Peter. From a rough, swearing, tough fisherman into a fine, stalwart Christian leader who was later martyred for his Lord. Think of John, the humble, gentle, loving disciple. What was he like before Jesus changed him? He was one of the, what was he called? He was one of the sons of what? One of the sons of thunder. Oh, what do you think that would mean? Susan, you give very good explanations, thank you, I couldn't think of the word, of words. What do you think it means, sons of thunder?
Well, I think of military, army.
Yeah. Yeah. I think of when they say sons of thunder, I'm thinking loud and boisterous. You know, just can't keep his mouth shut, always talking, and sometimes putting his foot in his mouth. How many of you know people that are like that? Is your mouth big enough for your foot to go in? You know, what? Yeah, boisterous. You know, so that's what I think of Sons of Thunder, but yours is really good too, maybe military style. Cammie?
I can't think of a certain instance right now that somewhere in the Bible it talks about how I believe it was the sons of thunder. They were ready to just somebody was doing something to Jesus or planning on doing something, and John and his brother were like, "Rah!"
Yeah.
And they were ready to attack, and
Jesus is like, stand down, calm it down, you know, and that reminds me of my two boys. You know, they're always roughhousing. I'm like, would you guys just stop? Well, he did this. It doesn't matter. The other day, Eli was coming at Stephen, and Stephen moved out of the way, like his daddy told him, and Eli rammed his back up into the wall, which had a plug outlet. And Stephen's like, Mom, come here. I think he broke the plug. I'm like, this was like, I think it was Wednesday night, because Thursday we were getting ready to do the floors. And I'm like, go in there. I'm like, yup. He broke, you know how it has the plate cover? Well, he broke the top of it off, and then he broke the plug plastic part that the plug goes into, and that came off. I'm like, I was like, okay. I calmed him down. I was like, Joe, I think they broke the plug. I think you need to go down. He goes, okay. He goes, yep. And it wasn't like it was the 1960 style thing. Dave has probably had to deal with this in some things with his electrical stuff. And I'm like, he goes, yep, you boys, if you guys would just stay on your beds and not bother each other. He goes, Stephen's like, Dad, I didn't do it. He goes, did you do what I told you to do? Yeah. He goes, then you're fine. Eli, leave him alone. And Eli's like, my back. I was like, well, if you would have been on your bed like you were told, you wouldn't be getting hurt. I said, so please, guys. So we got it all fixed, but I'm just like, oh my word, that's all we need. So we taped it off so they wouldn't put anything in there. And Joe's like, I have to check because I don't want an electric fire to start in the middle of the night. So he checked, and the boys were like, he goes, we're not, it's fine. it's nothing's going to happen tonight. I was just like, on top of them were being terrified of things, that just, I was like, can you guys just stay on your beds, please? It's like, but John, he and his brother wanted to sit on Jesus' right and left hand in his kingdom. That's what Cammie was talking about. And that's why they were called the Sons of Thunder, because they were arguing, like brothers do. They were arguing at who got to sit on what side of Jesus. Okay, then think of Matthew. Jesus worked a miracle in John's life. What about Matthew, the tax collector? Oh, taxes. Start getting your taxes ready, ladies, because tax season's coming sooner than you think. Yay! But Matthew, the tax collector, was completely transformed after he met Jesus Christ. He was a dishonest, cheating publican, hated by people. Jesus made him over into one of his most faithful disciples and the writer of the Gospel of Matthew in the New Testament. See, God can change even the meanest people in the Bible. You could name many, many others recorded in God's Word, such as scheming, tricky Jacob. What did he do that was schemy and tricky? Oh, what? Another brother instance. He tricked his brother out of his birthright. And so he didn't get the blessings like he could have gotten if he just would have waited and not been deceitful. Okay? The Lord changed his life and his name. Israel became a prince with God. You will hear about Mary Magdalene, the Samaritan woman, the Apostle Paul. One of my favorite stories is about the Apostle Paul. Saul, what did he do? He stoned people, stoned Christians, because he didn't like hearing what needed to be told. And he knew what needed to be done, but he didn't want to do it. Well, one day he was walking and God blinded him. How would you like to get punished that way? Nope. Don't do what Jesus says. But God punished him and blinded him until he got to a certain place, and God let him see again. And Saul realized that I need to change my life around. And so God changed his name to Paul. Amazing. And many others who were made in new they were made new. They were changed by Jesus Christ. And he is in the life-changing business today. We can take a boy who cheats his way through school, deceiving and lying to get his way, and can turn his life around, and by his power and grace change him into an honest and truthful Christian and a faithful servant of God. By witnessing to him. And by telling him, hey, it's not right. We don't do that. It's wrong. Once a girl with an uncontrollable temper became enraged over little things and did things that hurt others very much. She would get very moody, impudent, and disrespectful to her parents, teachers, and others who had authority over her. But she let Jesus into her heart and gave her life to him. She asked him to save her and change her and deliver her from her terrible temper and hateful disposition. The Lord set her free from these sins and made her a new person. What can God do in your life? You know, he changed the water into wine, which is probably one of the, easier, with him anything's easy, but easier miracles. He could change the man who was full of demons, legion. He changed him. He got his life right. He can change the vilest of sinners and can set them free. But I'm a Christian. I'm doing everything right. Are you doing everything right? No. We're not perfect. We're going to fail more ways than we could count. I said, but how are you going to change that? How are you going to overcome it? Are you going to sit here and say, I don't need God's help. I could do it all on my own. Well, good luck. There's no way we could do these things on our own. But through the power of God, we can do it. But we have to be willing to say, okay, I'm ready. How are we going to overcome our financial difficulties? Asking God. If you're not in the financial peace program on Sunday nights, come out, be a part of it. You might be a couple weeks behind, but that's okay. Come out, be a part of it. It'll help you financially. Well, I don't need help financially. It's my health. Well, who's the great physician? God. God can heal. He healed the lady that touched the hem of his garment who had the issue of blood all her life. Just by touching the hem of his coat. She was healed. Because why? She had that faith of a little mustard seed. I'm just sick and tired of this illness. I want it gone so I could do stuff. She trusted God. Once he walked past her, she just touched his robe and she was healed. Without Jesus even saying, be healed. Or, he goes, who touched me? For I had virtue come out. Well, all the disciples standing around him, and, well, there's throngs of people around you. Everybody could have, he goes, no. And then he looked, there she was. So God can heal anybody. What about the person who was crippled and was waiting back, trying to get to the pool of Bethesda to get healed? Because it only stirred however many times a year. But he couldn't walk, so it took him longer to get there. Well, people helped him out, and he got there. He was healed because he had faith. What about the guy who couldn't walk, and his friends tried to get him to Jesus, but they couldn't go through the main way, and they climbed up on the top of the roof and opened up the roof and lowered him down? What are you doing to help yourself? Do we need some things changed in our lives? Of course, we all do. The same miracle-working God who changed the water into wine will change you if you ask him to and let him do it. In Matthew 19:26, it says, but Jesus beheld them and said unto them, with men this is impossible, but with God, what? All things are possible. What? Yeah. We just got to trust that he will see us through our trials and our tribulations that we might go through. But all of these testings that God puts in our life, he puts there for a reason. Okay? We only have a couple minutes left. I took longer on that last point because I thought it was important. Yes, ma'am.
I looked up when you were saying, how this mother, woman. I looked up something, and it says it's hard translating from like the Greek or Hebrew into English because there's so many different idioms. And when he calls this mother woman, it was more like ma'am.
Yeah.
And then when he says, "What do I have to do with thee?" It wasn't something disrespectful. It
Mm-hmm.
was, what does this have to do with me?
Right.
I'm not part of
Yep.
the writing committee or whatever. What does this have to do with me? So I just thought you could share that.
And that is a good, thank you.